Welcome. My name is Florian. I work for
Peri. That's a
German manufacturer of formwork and scaffolding material. And my role is basically, I'm a market researcher and strategist. I don't know if all of you know what formwork and scaffolding is all about. Basically, it's stuff that you use on construction sites for temporary work, to pour concrete, to provide access for workers. It's nothing that you usually come across when you don't know what it is. So next time you walk past a construction site, just take a look, keep your eyes open, see if you can find a Peri logo there. Like most companies, we have challenges in growing our business. And when I say we are a formwork and a scaffolding company, basically we are a formwork company. We've always had scaffolding material, but that was more or less to support the formwork, as propping it up, shoring it. But we were never really that successful in growing our scaffolding business as access for workers, for painters on facade jobs, for example. We started, I think, 15 years ago, and turnover is still, let me call it, sluggish. So when you look at the markets and you're trying to understand who are our clients and what drives them, what do they need, how do we set ourselves up to be more successful than we were in the past, you will find a lot of things. You will find a host of different companies, big contractors, small contractors, medium-sized contractors. Those are the guys we sell our material to, and they basically erect it and dismantle it on site. Those are our clients. You also find a lot of different applications. You find the easy, small paint facade job, but you also find the big industrial job for renovations, for example. And you find different ways of working in the market. Some are more advanced and some are more down to earth, let me call it like that. And now what do you make of all that information? How do you position your company to be successful with all these clients? And most of you will know how this works in many companies. There's individual customer comments, there are trade shows, there are big orders, and those individual comments and nuggets that lead to, at some point, some sort of collective hysteria, and there's this knowledge in the company. Everybody believes they know what the client wants, and if you trace it down and trace it back to where it's coming from, it's always the same source somehow. So that was the situation for us, how to grow that business by understanding the clients better and set ourselves up to be successful. We had to answer the following questions. What do our clients actually need from us? What do they value? How can we measure that value creation potential? And how can we make sure that we develop the right products and services? And the third one, how can we align the organization to implement that growth strategy? That's a tall order, and we set out on that journey, and we were looking for some help, and that's when I met Martin from Edizon.
Thank you, Florian. Yeah, I'm Martin. I'm from Vienna, and I represent Edizon Innovation. We are partners of Strategy, and we deliver outcome-driven innovation, consulting and training services together with Strategy in the USA. We do this for the European part of the world, and I would like to guide you through that story. First of all, what are the customer needs? We deliver, or we work on the job to be done perspective to uncover hidden needs. What does that mean? Anybody of you know about job to be done? I think some of you might have heard about it. So what is the principle of it? People buy products and services only to get a job done. And therefore, the job to be done shall be the unit of analysis before the product or the customer. And applying this lens, this job to be done lens to a market delivers totally new perspectives on strategy and innovation. Now let me give you an example for that. How do we define a market when a job to be done, from a job to be done perspective? We define it by only two things. The group of people that we want to create value for, in that case, scaffolding foremen, and the job to be done that we want to create value for, in that case, erect a scaffold. You might also define the job to be done on a different flight level, as we call it. You can say that you want to deliver value for working at height, because that's actually what people are trying to achieve with a scaffold. And you can go to higher and higher flight levels. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that this job definition aligns with your corporate strategy and your strategic objectives. In that case, erecting a scaffold was exactly the job to be done that Peri wanted to create value for. Now, having said that, once we know what the job is, we can analyze it. And a job to be done is always to be understood as a process. Now, when a job is a process, we can break it down into its logic steps. And for each of those steps, we can identify measuring criteria, metrics, and we call that the desired outcomes of the customers. Now let me go a little bit into detail on this. About the job steps. Any job to be done can be dissected in 8 logic elements. And this comes out of Six Sigma, a methodology, out of process management, where you try to describe a process in its ideal way. Now what you can see here is a job map for erecting a scaffold in its ideal way. This is not necessarily what people are doing at the moment. This is not the customer journey. This is what they are trying to achieve in an ideal world. And we want to make a model that describes a job in its ideal format. So that means once you have this in mind, and this is published in Harvard Business Review, the customer-centered innovation map, when you have that in mind, you already know how the job is structured before even talking to the first customer, which makes it highly effective to capture the needs aligned to that job model. And this is what you do then in the next step when you have created the job steps and understand it from the viewpoint of a scaffolding foreman. You then want to understand what are the metrics to get this job done better. So what are they trying to achieve to get this job done better? And there's only 3 metrics. The first one is time. Here we are in the center of outcome-driven innovation. People want to minimize the time it takes to get a job done. An example for it would be they want to minimize the time it takes to prepare the underground on site, e.g. straighten, compress, and drain. The second parameter that people want to get done when getting a job done is they want to have a higher stability, less variance. An example for variance in erecting a scaffold would be minimizing the likelihood of equipment falling off the scaffold during its erection, e.g. tools, parts, etc. And the third one is output, efficiency. People want to have more yield. They want to get more out of it and put less effort in it. And an example for that would be to minimize the likelihood that safety instructions delay the start of erection. Now what you can take out of these 3 examples is that in none of those needs statements of these desired outcomes, you can find any feature, technology, or solution. So these statements, these need statements, are free of any solution. And the consequence of that is that they are stable over time. So by analyzing needs like this, you get a set of needs that is stable over time and that makes innovation a predictable process. Because you can be sure that these needs have been here 10 years ago and they will be here 10 years in the future. So you have a stable parameter in your innovation equation. It does not mention any solution, it's stable over time, and it's measurable and actionable. Because you can measure the time it takes, you can measure the likelihood that something happens, you can measure it, and it's actionable in the innovation process.
That's the jobs to be done 101. Now let's take a look at how we implemented that in practice. We are a company where many people are running around that say, hey, I know my customer, I know what they want. And we were going, great, then probably you can tell us a lot about how they work and what the pitfalls are. So essentially we started internally with interviewing people who work for Peri now, but who used to work as a scaffolding, erection, dismantling contractor. That gave us like this 60 or 70% solution of the different steps they're going through on site and also the metrics that they use basically to determine whether they've been successful or not. And when we had that in place, we went out, we had about 6 to 8 interviews, a focus group, just to complement that data with the viewpoints from other clients as well. And that is actually what I call knowledge meets methodology. So all that knowledge, and any company has a plethora of knowledge about their markets, is now structured. It's in a common format, and it's also in a common language that anybody can relate to. Just one learning. And so also we were very happy to have the help of Martin and his team. You will need trained interviewers to do that. You cannot just go out and ask questions. You will need to know what questions to ask, how to ask them, and also how to translate that into a common language in the end. So now that we had this framework in place, we wanted to go one step further, measure it, meaning we wanted to quantify the needs of our clients.
And this is being done in the opportunity landscape, as we call it. Want to show you how this works. Once you have these outcomes in place and you typically achieve 100 to 150 outcome statements for any job to be done, be it erecting a scaffold or cooking meal for your friends, you will end up, when you follow this ideal model, with about 100 to 150 measurable outcome statements. And you now put all that statements in a big questionnaire and carve that out to a representative sample of clients, of job executors who execute the job, and ask them for 2 questions. How important is each of these outcomes, and how well is it served with existing solutions? So how important is it, and how satisfied are you in getting it done? And as an example here, you can again find this one outcome statement out of the scaffold example. Now when you put that questionnaire out, sometimes the data gets back and you can analyze it. You plot it on an opportunity landscape with these 2 axes, importance and satisfaction, and it will tell you all the needs plotted on that landscape. The example again you have here, this is one of these outcome statements now plotted in the dark gray area, and the dark gray area means it's a need that is very important and not very well served with existing solutions from the viewpoint of the customer. You also find other needs that are not so important and very well served, very well satisfied from the viewpoints of the customer in the total market. So these are overserved needs. By doing so, you find both sides of the innovation medal, not only the underserved needs, but also the overserved needs, which gives you a perfect input into a strategy development, where to take out performance and where to invest into better performance in the future. And you can drill down into the data set. Because when you look at the total market, you might wonder if there would be different groups of customers with different needs, profiles. So what we have found is, as the needs follow an ideal model, the needs are always the same. The only thing that differentiates customer groups is the rating of importance and satisfaction of those needs. And you can find now groups of customers that have different priorities when getting their job done. In this case here, you find 3 groups of customers in that market. One group is on the very right-hand side on top here. Everything is super important, not very and already well served. You find another group, the green ones, that are kindly distributed all over the landscape. And then there's a red group that is extremely challenged. They are extremely challenged with many of those needs, and they are highly underserved. Now you can see this one statement spreads over now these 3 groups of customers, and you can see how this one need is differently evaluated by these 3 groups of customers, which could call for different strategies and different approaches in the market.
So the next thing we set out to do was to profile those, because hey, this is a statistical exercise. If I just torture the data set enough and play around a bit, I can prove a lot of things. The important for me here is I need to make it actionable and working in real life. I can't go to my sales force and say, hey, check those guys out. You have to address these and these needs and play those and those points on our products, and then they will buy whatever you're trying to sell them. Who are the red guys? So profiling here I think is very important. And I will take one of those as an example and guide you through that. I think we can, let's have a look at the cluster 1, the blue one here. In our example, they said minimize the time it takes to prepare the underground on site. Well, it's somewhat of a chance. It's important to them, but it's not that they are completely dissatisfied with the solutions that are in the market so far. So when we set out to profile them, we found out that's basically the defining factor, who they are and what they need is context. And we came to those three clusters here. I will stick to the example of cluster one. Cluster one, those are medium-sized contractors that work in special applications. For example, church restorations or high buildings with complicated architecture. I think this is sort of...
What's happening?
I don't know. It's developing its own life here, but it's a zombie.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Don't touch it. If you remember the outcome statement, they said, yes, it's important. Of course, the foundation, the underground is important for any scaffold. Without foundation, it's hard to place a scaffold at all. But they also said, it's okay how it is working out today. Why? Well, they're working a lot of restoration projects. If you have a church restoration, for example, there will be some sort of underground. You may need to do a little preparation, but other than that, it's basically there. As compared to the others who work, for example, in industrial applications or in single-family housing, they have a very different set of needs. We were able to basically go back to criteria like company size, application they work in, what makes it complex, to profile them and figure out who they are. And these profiles and the needs of those profiles basically allowed us to inform, now good luck with that, the teams that worked on the innovation that was to follow.
Now, the next question or the next step here is to come up with an aligned growth strategy, to derive out of these opportunities a combined and aligned growth strategy. And this is a schematic picture for this. You start off the strategy process with the opportunity in the market, like with this outcome statement that is of high opportunity in the market for a given segment. And you then make it an integrated process with the marketing team, the product management team, the digital services management team, the new business development team, you name it. And you might have different names for those teams in your own organizations. But what is important is that you do this together and that you share a common understanding on what is the most important unmet need in the market, and then you will come up with communication measures, you will come up with product innovation, digital service innovation, and also new business models to make it happen and to bring impact to the market. Now, this is also an answer to how do you want to steer digital? You steer digital as well by unmet customer needs, because when there is a need that is not met and you can solve it better, you will be the high probability of success in the market.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue here, because we would like to finish off to show you some examples of what we did. This is in the area of digital innovation. We found out that our clients struggle a lot with planning and with actually implementing that plan on site when things happen that are not supposed to happen. You can see an example here. We are developing digital tools that basically support the whole process, from an automatic scanning of the building to designing the right scaffolding solution to basically coming up with a plan on how to erect it and to help workers on site with augmented reality solutions to actually work exactly according to that plan, which minimize the time it takes and also minimize the likelihood that they will get distracted and somebody, in this actual case, gets a beer from somewhere and then the whole site shuts down. So this is probably the most important that we found out. We also have some other initiatives going on that maybe in 2 or 3 years' time I can tell you more about. Today I would have to erase your memory if I did. We also adjusted a few of our services, especially on customer training that addresses some of their needs. And we also adjusted our communication because we found that some features that address unmet needs are already implemented in our portfolio as of today.
And to summarize it and give you an outlook, the impact of that is a long-term roadmap for growth with measures in each of these categories that will inform your organization for the next 5 to 10 years to come, up until the development of very radical platform solutions that get the whole job done for the customer better and cheaper. And that is the core objective here, understanding the job and coming up with a solution package that gets the whole job done better, cheaper, and faster.
So we were able to answer those 3 questions. We were able to uncover needs, also hidden needs. We were able to measure them and to inform the organization and derive a growth strategy out of that.
Now, I hope this slide stays here, otherwise I just bring it visually. There's a book on it. We have it here. If you come to our booth on the other side of that building, you get a download link for that, and we send you the hard copy of that one if you like. And we also have a heart for innovation for you to take with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you may join us at the Job to be Done Summit in Vienna in March 25-26, where a lot of corporations share their stories.